Today we're looking at the Boston Massacre. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. So by 1770 in Boston, tensions were extremely high between American colonists and British officials there. Over the past 6 years, the British had tried to impose new taxes and regulations on the colonies. The Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, and the Townshend Act had all met resistance. In response, the British had sent 2,000 British troops to occupy Boston to ensure law and order was maintained and that taxes were being paid. Boston was a hotbed of resistance, with the Sons of Liberty consistently causing problems for British tax collectors. On the cold, snowy evening of March 5th, 1770, violence would erupt outside the British Customs House on King Street. There, guarding the Customs House, was British Private Hugh White. A crowd of upset colonists began to gather on King Street, many of them coming directly from working on the docks in Boston, where they made a lot of rope. In order to make rope, they used a short club to twist the pieces of twine together. These clubs were virtually like baseball bats. So Private Hugh White was facing an angry armed mob in front of the customs house. The mob began to yell insults and began threatening to attack White. White struck back, hitting a colonist with the butt of his gun. The crowd now began to throw snowballs, chunks of ice, and shells at White. White called for help, and British Captain Thomas Preston arrived with an additional 7 British soldiers. The British soldiers took up a defensive position outside the customs house, fearing that the mob might attack the building. Witness accounts differ as to what exactly happened next. It's said that some colonists were begging the British troops not to fire, while others were mocking them and daring them to shoot. The colonists reportedly began to attack the troops with their clubs, and then someone heard the order to fire given. The British troops began shooting. The crowd suddenly dispersed, with everyone running to get away from the gunfire. When the smoke cleared, 3 colonists lay dead in the street. 2 others were mortally wounded and would die of their wounds, and then an additional 6 were wounded. The first to be killed at the scene was Crispus Attucks, a dock worker of African and Native American descent. Many consider Attucks to be the first American to die in the Revolution. Others to die at the scene included James Gray, who was a rope maker, and a sailor named James Caldwell. The British troops at the scene were arrested and charged with murder. The Sons of Liberty immediately sprung into action, spreading negative propaganda, which propaganda is information that is biased or trying to mislead people to believe one point of view. The Sons of Liberty painted the British as being bloodthirsty soldiers who attacked an innocent group of peaceful protesters. In addition, silversmith Paul Revere created an engraving which showed his version of the scene on King Street. And I'll come back and talk more about that engraving in a little while. But fanning the flame as well was the fact that most of the colonies were literate or could read. So stories of the event spread quickly in newspapers throughout all of the colonies. Within days, all of the colonies, not just Massachusetts, were absolutely irate about the events there on King Street. After 7 months, the British soldiers were brought to trial. Ironically, Boston lawyer John Adams, who of course would go on to help write the Declaration of Independence and be the second president of the United States, he defended the British troops in the trial. Even though Adams was a patriot and despised British interference in the colonies, he also strongly believed everyone deserved a fair trial, so he agreed to defend the British troops. In the trial, Adams proved that the scene at the customs house was in such chaos that no one could clearly determine if the British troops were given the order to fire or not. Captain Preston was found not guilty, and the other soldiers claimed self-defense. Only 2 of the British soldiers were found guilty, but only of manslaughter, and so they were branded on their thumbs, which was the legal British punishment at the time. The Boston Massacre brought the relationship between American colonists and the British to near a breaking point. Now it would only take a little nudge, and the American Revolution would begin in full. Now, back to the picture by Paul Revere. Down in the description, I've included a link to the picture itself. What I would ask you to do is take a look at the picture and see if you can identify 3 parts of the picture that demonstrate bias. Basically, what is in the picture that clearly shows Paul Revere's negative outlook on the British? Is there anything in the picture that is inaccurate or, not really based on truth from what you've heard about what happened in the Boston Massacre? So, with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.